Good morning, Muscatine. We have now all decided, there's several of us here, we've decided it's not December anymore. I've got my calendar straightened out. We are in February, we're almost to the end. It looks and feels like February out there, but it is starting to perk up a little bit, so hopefully everybody's getting ready to get out a little bit. We've got a couple of guests today, so we're going to kind of cut right to it. The first guest I have here with me today is Don Lampe from Habitat for Humanity. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
So you guys have got a bunch of stuff going on.
Yes, we have.
Which you always do. You guys just finished a house.
Correct.
You've got a new house to get ready for. And you've been well, not yet, but there's 3D printing on the horizon. So we got a lot to cover.
Yes, we do.
The house that you guys just finished up, you walk us through that process. Because, I mean, actually, a lot of people don't know, like, what all it actually takes. I mean, obviously, you pick a family, you build a house, they live in it.
Right.
On one hand, that's simple. But as you get close to getting done and you're getting ready to dedicate it and get it to the family, what does that all look like?
Yeah, it does sound simple, it does sound easy and stuff, but for anybody that's in the construction industry knows that building a home is not always the easiest thing. But it is, for Habitat for Humanity, that's what we do. We build homes, we build brand new homes and stuff and select what we call partner families and stuff to live in those homes. So, it's something that we do every day, but it still presents new challenges every single time we do it. With this home here, it was, as I've said with all of our homes, and this was our 13th home in the community, by the way. So we, the Habitat affiliate from Muscatine, has built 12 previous homes. This was our 13th home that we just dedicated with Mindy and Corey Ross and the family this past about 2 weeks ago. So it was a great day. As I've said before, the dedication day is one of the best days, but it's also one of my toughest days as well. It's one of your best days because you get to hand the keys to a deserving family and stuff and say, here, we're going to change the trajectory of your family out there and stuff and take you from, being able to just kind of make things meet and stuff to where, man, now you can do all kinds of things for your family because you have a stable home environment and stuff. It's a big deal. Yeah. But then on the other hand, as I think about, all of the process that we went through to get to that level, it also means that there's a whole lot of other families that we didn't select.
Right.
So that's when I say that it's a tough day, because I remember all the other applications and all the other families that we interviewed, and we had to say no to them in order to say yes to this individual. So as I've said to the community and others out there, the need is great. There's a lot of need within Muscatine for affordable, decent homes in Muscatine, and so there's a lot more work that can be done. We just need additional support, additional work to get that done.
And just keep going.
I think
we talk about this a lot on the show when some of the nonprofits stop in, and we talk about the need in Muscatine. And Muscatine is, such an interesting community when you compare it to so many others, because there are a lot of resources here. There's a lot of need, and historically, I've lived here all my life. I grew up here in the 80s, and wow, I'm old. There's always this function in this community of how you catch the resources and get them to the right spots.
Right.
And it's through organizations like Habitat and Big Brothers Big Sisters, all of them, that help fit that. So you're right, though. Every organization has its limits, and there's always going to be additional needs.
And as you said, we are blessed within the Muscatine community because we do have such a varied base to draw from. We have lots of industries, we have lots of individuals, private individuals that want to get involved. So, as a nonprofit, I know that we are blessed within the Muscatine community because of the situation that we live in and stuff. So it's a great thing that we have those types of resources and backing in the community. But as you said, the need is still great. If we're going to grow as a community and continue to bring additional families and stuff to the community to be employed by the industries that are here, we need that affordable housing and stuff, and Habitat is one of those ways that we can kind of give the hand up, not the hand out. This is not a free house, by the way.
Right.
They do have to pay it back and stuff like that, but it's just that hand up to kind of get them over the hump and get them into, really taking off as a family and stuff.
Which is awesome. And now, so here's a question. So you talked about it, it's kind of ending one chapter and starting another one. So you're going to have to start looking for another family.
Correct.
I would have never even thought about this, but as you mentioned, there were some applications that you weren't able to select last time. Do those kind of automatically carry over, and you just kind of like check back in with them?
Correct.
Yep. So like, how long does it take to go from start to finish for a house, roughly?
Normally for our Habitat house, and this time because of so many industries stepping forward, we were able to finish this house in about 6 to 7 months. Normally it takes about 8 to 10, but this house, because of all the volunteers we had, and by the way, thank you very much, we were able to complete it much faster. So it's about a 6 to 7 months to build, but that front end that it takes to select the family, that's probably about a 2 to 3 month process to go through, from gathering all the names and having people submit their applications to going through the interview process and the selection process and making that determination. That's a 2 to 3 month process as well.
I would imagine.
It's a long process.
So what does that look like as you start going to the next project? What, people are going to have to apply? Because here's the thing. I know there's people out there watching that either A, could use the help, or B, know someone who could.
Sure.
So like, what do they do? Like, how do they get that ball rolling?
Yep. So if you are interested, or you know somebody who you think may qualify for that, there's multiple ways to get a hold of us. We have our phone number that you can just call the office and leave a message. We have Facebook that you can go to and look us up on Facebook. It's just Muscatine Habitat in Muscatine, and you'll find us. And then our webpage, and we're redoing our webpage. So if you go to our new webpage, which is muscatinehabitat.org, you'll find that you can go on there and you can communicate directly to us. It has kind of what we're about and how we go about things. So the website is still under construction right now. We're redoing a few things to make that application process as seamless and easy as possible. But go to one of those 3 situations and contact us and let us know that, hey, I'm interested in it, and what are the guidelines? We can help you with that. Or if you know somebody that says, wow, this is a really deserving family, I know them, submit their names, and we can definitely reach out to them and start that process going.
That's awesome. So as you kind of go through this, I assume you have a committee that makes a selection, and what are the sort of things that they look at when they do this?
So when we look at a partner family, and that's what we call the families that are, because they really do partner with us, requires them to, hey, you have to help build, you've got to be involved in this. It isn't just, hey, you get selected and I hand you the keys. You're very much involved throughout the build. But what the criteria that we normally look at is normally income level. So it does fit kind of that bracket in there. It also looks at their current situation where they're living today. Is it up to standard? Is it something that can sustain a family and stuff like that? What is their situation that they're living in today? And that's really where we start with, is what is the situation that the family's in today? Is it a good situation for the family? And it may be a single parent. It may be an individual that is as I am, thankfully retired and stuff, and saying, hey, I just need a helping hand. And again, I reiterate the fact that it's a hand up, not a hand out. This is something that we really truly believe that with stable housing, you can accomplish some great things out there. So income, the current living situation, is the 2 primary driving factors for selection.
So stable housing and this production process brings us to the next thing that we get to talk about, which I'm a little bit of a tech nerd, admittedly, and so I absolutely love this. And this is 3D printing of homes, which is nuts. I think about 3D printing often as like the desktop thing and poof. And really, honestly, it's not that different, other than it's just this huge pump and grid. And so the Community Foundation has done a lot of work with this. And I know you guys, like, how is 3D printing affecting you guys?
Yep.
Like, how is that connection all being made?
So again, the great thing about Muscatine, as I reiterated, that we've got a great base of people to draw from as far as funds and volunteers and stuff. But the other great thing is that the nonprofits within the community work extremely well together. And you can talk to other individuals and nonprofits from around the nation and around the state, and they'll tell you that that's rare. That you get a community like Muscatine that You know, you have MCSA, you have the Community Foundation, you have, you know, Rebuild Muscatine, you have, you know, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, you have all of those out there that are cooperating together and stuff. So to be able to do that and have that within this community, again, is a blessing that we have as a community that we really need to leverage. And 3D printing housing, or house, is an example of that. You know, Muscatine, the Community Foundation kind of started the ball rolling with this, and MCSA stepped in, and we have the designated neighborhood that you know, we're kind of all focusing on. So the fact that they were awarded, you know, $1 million+ grant to build 10 3D cement printed homes is really cool for a size of community like this. We are going to be one of the first in the nation, and the first within Iowa to build this type of thing. So it really is, you know, something that's going to put Muscatine on the map, and something that we should take pride in, and saying, hey, this is very unique, very, you know, forward thinking of stuff, and how do we address this housing need, and what do we do it, and what are the best ways to do it? 3D cement printed homes are just an avenue of that, but it will be exciting. I mean, I envision, as you said, I remember the desktop 3D printed homes that printed the little plastic things and stuff like that. Now you're doing this huge home. So it will be a great learning experience for us. The great thing is that we've, you know, contracted with Zach Mannheim from Alquist out of Iowa City. So it's a local, somewhat local individual that's going to design this home and has the machine to print it. And he's coming to Muscatine to build 10 homes like this. So it really will be fun to watch and fun to learn.
I can't wait. Like, I'm excited about, like, taking some cameras out and, like, time lapsing some of this, and, like, maybe throw the drone up and watch it go. You know, like, I'm amazed by it, and it solves a real need in the community. Like, I mean, we have a housing need across the entire spectrum. I mean, you just
from the high price points to the
everywhere.
Everywhere.
And
is exactly
you know,
right.
if you can use every source available, whether it's sticks and nails or concrete, whoever can build houses, and if they can get them to Muscatine, we need them. So that's an absolutely amazing
the 3D printed home will be really fun to see go up and stuff, and we think it will be something that, you know, will change you know, how housing is built in the future and stuff. And we're learning. Muscatine Community College is involved in this, and they're going to have a course specifically for individuals that want to become certified in building these homes and running the machine. So, you know, I'm like you. I'm kind of a techie guy. I like kind of tech stuff. So if you're interested in that, contact Muscatine Community College out there and say, hey, I want to get involved in that course and learn how to do this stuff, and get involved in it, because it will be really fun to do.
You know, that might even make a good, like, retirement gig for somebody. You know what I mean? Like, just coming off your career, hop out, get a little bit of an education certification, and, you know, kind of cruise for another couple of years. That'd be kind of cool.
Because it is a booming side of the housing industry that says, hey, we can't, you know, to build it with sticks and stuff is still a great way to go, no doubt about it. The 3D printed homes using cement is just a variation off of that says, you know, how do we do this? How do we do it better? And it also produces a very energy efficient home, because if you can imagine, you know, this is pretty well, you know, insulated and everything in there. So, and it's been done for years. You know, it's not like, because if you walk into most buildings, as this is Hy-Vee as an example, it's cement wall.
Concrete's a thing.
Like, we're just doing this, and again, the community is really involved. Hoffman Silos involved. Han Ready-Mix is involved. MCC is involved. MCSA. Community Foundation, Habitat. I mean, all of these different, you know, for-profit and non-profit organizations coming together to do this is, again, really something that's why they picked Muscatine, because they didn't find communities that had that type of cooperation across the spectrum to go do this.
You know, what's amazing is, you know, if you've been in Muscatine for any period of time, you know that this coordinated concept is something that's been on the community conversation list for years, right?
Exactly.
And the funny thing that I find, you know, because, like, obviously owning a newspaper and media thing, I get messages from everybody all the time, and, you know, like, and what's funny is we do this better than everybody else. Well, I don't know about everybody else, but we're really good at it.
We're really good at it.
But yet we're frustrated by how well we communicate sometimes, which I love, because that just means that we want to be better. And that's, you know, Tony Lokensol in his column this week, that'll be coming out, wrote about the Heart and Soul
Yes.
initiative, I guess it is, through the city and all that, and find out where the community wants to be.
Right.
And it's that whole concept of like, how does all this stuff come together?
Yep.
And like, it's a conscious effort.
Yes,
and,
very much so.
You know, are we all going to be perfect? No. Are we sometimes going to forget to tell somebody something, or forget that, oh, hey, somebody could have done something? Yeah, that's just the reality.
Yep.
But what I love is the fact that we say, okay, well, let's not do that again. How do we eliminate that?
Yep.
And so it's that whole lean concept. I don't know where that came from. It's almost like it's kind of embedded in the town somewhere. But so that's awesome. I absolutely love it.
It's, you know, very much like a family. You know, we all, you know, brothers and sisters. We don't always get along. We have squabbles as brothers and sisters, and that will probably happen. But in reality, when it comes down to, it's still all about how do we get more affordable homes in the community so that the industries can attract more workers to come to Muscatine, and you know, we can grow the community, and you know, the industries can have the resources that they need. Families can have simple, affordable, decent housing that they can do. And the great thing is, all of those different nonprofits have kind of their little area of expertise that they get into. So we all kind of focus in those areas and try and stay in those swim lanes, if you will. But at the same time, still kind of all pulling together and saying, hey, we can still do what we need to in a coordinated manner.
And if there's a time where somebody needs you to step out of your lane and be like, hey, you do this, could you do this?
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
So thanks for stopping in.
Well,
it's
thank you. Thanks for the
blast.
opportunity.
I love talking about building stuff. I always do. Is there anything real quick before we go else that you want to make sure that people know?
No, all I'd say is that we are looking for a partner family. So if you yourself are in that situation, or if you know of a family that's in that situation, please reach out to us through Facebook, through our website, through our phone and stuff, and please let us know, because we want to address as many of that as we possibly can. And you know, the more need we can identify, the more resources we can then attract, and the more housing that we can do. Because right now we're trying to build one home a year. Who says we can't build more than that? If we can find, you know, the resources and everything else, we can certainly try and do what we can from Habitat for Humanity.
Awesome.
So,
well, Don, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate it. And you're welcome back anytime as things go on.
We will keep you updated as we go along, and we'd love to see, you know, as we get started on this 3D printing, I think it will be kind of a community event to get excited about.
Show from out there.
That
awesome.
would be fantastic.
So,
okay.
Remember, reach out to Habitat if you could use the help, or if you know someone who could. But we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with Melanie Alexander from the Muscatine Art Center.
Here at Toyota Muscatine, we're here to serve.
When you buy a vehicle at a multi-brand dealership and it isn't locally owned, it can be difficult to get information that you need.
That's why all of our trained salespeople are focused on one thing: getting you the best deal possible on a new or used Toyota.
And when you pick your favorite, we will help you with financing and maintenance.
We love helping our neighbors.
Come to Toyota Muscatine today.
When you buy a vehicle for Toyota Muscatine, keeping your vehicle safely on the road is our highest priority.
We offer scheduled maintenance and extended service hours for those unexpected repairs.
Our service department's mechanics are dedicated to providing you with the highest quality of care.
Feel free to ask any of our friendly staff if you have any questions.
Come on down to Toyota Muscatine today.
Okay guys, we've been through a lot together. We all know sometimes it gets hard, but it's okay to not feel okay. You know what helps? A good book or going for a walk. Not now, Fred. But what really helps is to talk to someone. Because to take care of each other, you gotta take care of you. If you need to talk to someone, your doctor will listen. Unity Point Health. Know how much you matter to this world.
Back, we've got Melanie Alexander, the director of the Muscatine Art Center, here with us. She's actually got, I mean, there's always tons of stuff going on, which check their website out. There's always like classes, everything else. But that's not actually what we're going to talk about. There's two huge exhibits that are here that I personally think are, one is so local, it's crazy. And then the other one is just ridiculous. I can't think of a better way to describe these things. And so the first one that we're going to talk about is Mark Saijan's sculptures. They're these ultra realistic, and Chris is going to pull them up as we talk about them, but these sculptures are just, I don't even know how to describe. Okay, wait. Well, so here's the thing. I'm going to stop talking because I'm not the expert in this, so let's go to the experts, almost like we have one right here. So tell us about Mark's sculptures, the exhibit, like, and Chris, do you have them up? Are they coming up? Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, just watch. But.
Yeah, they are ultra realistic, and they're cast from, you know, real people. He creates a mold, and then they're resin, and
Gotcha.
he puts 15 layers of paint to make the skin look so realistic. And they have, you know, all the features that people would have, you know, pores and blemishes, and they're pretty.
I was looking at the one that just fascinates me is the one with the, I don't know if he's a cop or a security guard, just sitting, and every time I'm like, it looks like it could be pulled out of like a Law and Order episode or something, and it's just like there.
Yeah.
So the exhibit is here now.
Yes.
It's open, and it's here through the
April 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've got some time. So it's what, 6 to 8 weeks left, something like that.
Right.
When someone goes to view this exhibit, what should they expect? Like, how long do you think it would take? What should they be prepared for?
It sort of depends, right? Because everybody moves through
Right.
exhibitions differently. Some really spend a lot of time looking. We do have a video about Mark, and it includes a little interview with him. So that's probably 5-6 minutes. So if somebody wants to sit and really hear from the artist himself about his work, that's a great way to do it. The sculptures, there's 9 or so, and it's a little freaky at first, because when you realize, I mean, we're not used to looking that closely at real people. So you can go up and spend as much time as you like looking at their eyes, and that's kind of it's a little disconcerting after a while.
when I first saw these, it sort of reminded me of that whole Uncanny Valley concept with, was it Polar Express? Was like one of the first digital movies that came out. Like, you watch Polar Express and you're kind of like creeped out a little bit. Like, it's awesome, but you're kind of like, I'm not sure that I like this. That looks so real, but I know it's not. It's that cognitive dissonance that I like. Ooh.
Right. Yeah, it's taken the staff a little while to get used to it, and I would say, you know, it's one thing for me if I catch like one of them out of the corner of my eye, then you think that somebody's there. But if I see a whole room of them, I don't have quite that same reaction. Now, I think one of the things that Mark's really known for is his treatment of skin, and, you know, the blemishes, the moles, you know, the pores, everything. So you will see more skin than maybe you're used to seeing in an exhibition. So there's several people who are in bathing suits or,
there's, and they can see him. There's, some of them, you know, kind of hit maybe a little closer to home than you might like. I don't know, but it's such a, I don't even know how to describe, like, it's a state of humanity function, but there's like no, it's art, but it's almost in some ways like there's no lens, like no filter to it.
Right.
It's like, you know, normally like, and again, Mary Alice, I apologize, I'm going to slaughter a whole bunch of stuff here that you should have taught me. You did teach me, so I apologize in advance. But, you know, like if you even think of like abstract artwork or anything else, usually there's some sort of filter or lens that the artist is approaching it with. But here, it's just stark reality.
Yeah.
So what would be something cool to know about Mark that, you know, kind of help you connect with the man who made all these?
Yeah, you know, I think it's, I mean, he is interested in characters, you know, so the people that he selected to create these sculptures from, they're more your ordinary people, or even people that maybe you might be surprised to encounter on the street. Right. So he, you know, he's not looking for like, oh, who's the most beautiful person I could find. And you know, and he's developed this technique and his practices for decades. Now his exhibition has been at the Art Center before. It's been maybe about 15 years since it was last year, and this is actually the third time it's been on view. Oh, wow. So there might be some people who remember these. Gotcha. Now, most of the sculptures should be different people than they've seen before, but yeah, it's he is super well known for what he does. I mean, he exhibits not just all over the country, but internationally as well. So, yeah, it's, you know, and we were originally going to have this exhibition back in fall of 2020. Right. And, you know, we were kind of at a place where the Art Center was open and we could have gone forward with it, but we thought, no, we want to make sure that people are able to come out and see it. So we've been working with Mark and his wife on this exhibition for several years, because I think we booked this maybe back in like 2018 or even earlier. So,
you know, so I apologize. I've had to have looked totally confused here for a moment, because all of a sudden, when you said characters and you were talking about the casting, all of a sudden it dawned on me. He's casting these. Like, I've cast things before, like, you know, simple, stupid stuff, like nothing. Right. Anyway. But all of a sudden it dawned on me, these people are wearing clothing, and that, like, it moved. Like, there's a whole extra layer of this. That, like, it just hit me all of a sudden when I was thinking about the cop that we were, or the street guard. I'm like, wait a second, that dude had clothes on. Like, that's like a, how did... I don't even want to know. It's gonna blow my brain. Just I think just come and look. Yeah. So there's the first one. So the second one, the second exhibition that we're going to talk about is significantly closer to home in its meaning and its everything. It's at the core of what Muscatine is in a lot of ways, and that's it's Faces of Hope. I should just give the title. Like, I'm trying to describe it like it's like somebody already came up with a title for it. Right. It's Faces of Hope, the original residence of the Clark House. Yes. And, you know, again, as somebody who's been here forever, I never dawned on me why it was called the Clark House until several years ago. You grew up, it's the Clark House. It's just what it is. And then all of a sudden, you know, as the community has really embraced that heritage over the last however long it's been. Right. It's been great to see, and all of a sudden you start making some of those connections. Right. And then to see this is like the real reality of it. Yeah. So kind of walk us through what some of this, it's history, it's art, it's like all of it in one. Yeah, it is in some ways a couple exhibits rolled into one. So it started out with the photography that Bob Campana took in the 1970s. Now, Bob is a photographer and has been for decades, but one of his first jobs as a young man, he was 23 years old, he becomes a low-income housing director for the city of Muscatine. So he's in the middle of all this, and I can't imagine what that would have been like to be 23 years old, and he's tasked with interviewing people who are interested in living in the Clark House because their current housing conditions and financial situation is, you know, problematic. So he's interviewing them and figuring out who are going to be the first, you know, take up these 100 rooms. 100 units. I mean, so it's not like it's this little project.
Right.
I mean, it's monstrous.
Yeah, and it involves all sorts of federal funds, and certain things have to be in place, and there's some stuff at the state level too, and they hit a bunch of setbacks along the way. Some of it having to do with federal funding, and then they finally get going again with it. And somebody says, hey, that's the ambassador's house. you can't tear that down. And so, you know, then there's a group that's actually out of Cedar Rapids, and our local Muscatine people are involved too.
Right.
But there's a group out of Cedar Rapids who's really pushing to save the Alexander Clark House. And then some folks at the state level, and so anyway, there's this big effort, and they do figure out a way that they can move it. So it's been moved. It's up a block from where it was. It's kind of across from River's Edge Gallery.
Yes.
On
yeah,
3rd.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it was a whole sort of thing. And there was a time where they didn't know whether or not they'd be able to move it, or if they spent much more effort or time with the house, the historic house, if the bigger housing project would be able to take place. So it was kind of, yeah, it was tricky.
and that's what, and again, this kind of goes back to, and we talked about a little with Don, but it's something about Muscatine. It's that entrepreneurial thing. You know, I was on the board of the History and Industry Center for a long time, and you just watch these periods of time in Muscatine where this problem-solving, almost ethos, is just like baked into us.
Yeah.
And this is another example that, you know, everybody knows the H&I story. You know, guys are coming back. We need jobs for them. Let's make recipes and cans, and then all of a sudden we got Han, right?
Right.
But this is the same sort of thing that came out of a 23-year-old, you know, not necessarily out of a 23-year-old, but like in the hands of a 23-year-old. But it's that same problem solving, it's that same Muscatine.
Oh, and it was a little controversial at the time, and this was the first low-income housing project for the city of Muscatine, so people were still getting used to the idea that there should be subsidized housing, you know, in that capacity. So, you know, there were Gil Dietz. I don't know if you remember him. He was a longtime, you know, editor for the Muscatine Journal, and he wrote these letters to Aunt Sadie. So he got into some of that, you know, because people were writing to him as the editor and complaining about, you know, why should people be able to live here and things of that nature. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't an easy thing. It was really complicated. And then you have the Alexander Clark House on top of it. So the exhibition, as I said, is kind of an exhibit within the exhibit. So we have the story of how the Clark House, its construction, you know, what happened, you know, they did, of course, build it, how they went about forming kind of a community, and Bob Campana he came back and visited with some of his sort of cohorts from the 1970s and interviewed them and captured their stories, you know, what they observed about this process. So there's quite a few folks that people here in Muscatine would know. Mike and Sue Johansson, Dwayne Sand was one that Bob interviewed. He's there's Gil Dietz, and you know, so there was a whole sort of group of people that were interviewed, so he captured their stories. And then one of the exhibits within the exhibit is Bob's photos of those original residents. And he created a directory. So those residents, all their faces are on the wall. But there's a lot of personal stories that are sort of shared throughout the exhibition. And then, you know, since we talked about Alexander Clark and his house being on that site, then we needed to just, you know, tell people why Alexander Clark is important and why he matters. So we developed 5, they're actually sort of pull-up banners that describe, you know, Alexander Clark, who he was, what he was known for. And so once that exhibition goes down, later people will be able to borrow those from us. If they have like an Alexander Clark event going on, or say it's the schools and they want to do a little bit of Alexander Clark history. So, yeah.
It's a handy community resource that kind of lives on past the initial exhibition. So when you think about this from your perspective, what you know, obviously you're going to have to get up and go outside, and granted it's a little cold and chilly right now, but what do you think the people at home, as you walk through this, what are the emotions they're going to walk through? Like, you know, because that's always the thing that I think about is what's that experience going to be?
Yeah.
And so it's going to, I would assume, could be intense depending on how you look at it, but like what else would you expect to kind of experience as you go through?
You know, I think people will certainly sympathize with the idea of, okay, you know, there was certainly a need for housing then, as there is today. And trying to figure out how to address it and how to jump through these hoops at different levels and sort of what the need was. I think what, you know, Bob Campana, I can't, like I said, I can't imagine it being, you know, one of your first jobs, 23, 24 years old, out, you know, and involved in this group that's deciding who's going to benefit from being one of the first residents. And he would go and interview these folks in their homes and observe their current situations and really get a deep understanding of what their needs were. So, you know, it would have been a lot for him.
I can only imagine. You know, we all talk about like mental health. Like we had Nami here earlier in the week, and you know, we talked about that whole function and how critical stability is. And I mean, Habitat talked about it. And now we can sit here and because of this exhibit, we can look back at, you know, 70 or 50 years ago. What was that like? It was. I would have to imagine a lot more raw. A lot less, you know, like today, sometimes we joke about mental health days. We all know we need them, and we all know we should. That didn't exist back then. And so for all of these, you know, 100+ stories living in this one person, I would imagine the weight of that was just crazy.
Oh yeah. And you know, I mean, Muscatine was in a period at that time of urban renewal, so some folks were losing their existing homes, and he had to, you know, explain that to an older person that, you know, the house that she had lived in for decades wasn't going to be, it was going to be torn down. So, but then of course it's called Faces of Hope. So you also have to think about all these people, you know, more than 100 of them, just suddenly living in a group setting, you know, where a lot of them have been in their own homes for decades, and now they're going to be, you know, kind of in an apartment, but they got communal dining, and they're going to have to get along with their neighbors. But it seemed like, you know, maybe Bob was the right person at the right time. He had that sort of fun-loving spirit, and brought people together, and they put on plays and quilted and did all sorts of things that built a community within that building.
It's the only way it could work. I mean, in reality, you can't just dump 100 people with their own challenges in and just hope it works. Like, that's not a recipe for success. You have to actively take conscious effort into, like, how do we get Group A to interact with Group B, and, you know, because even if they don't become the best of friends, you've got to still have this, like, community respect and, like, still care about your neighbor, like you mentioned. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of, you know, friendships and sort of, you know, it ended up working out really well, I think, for most people, where they built these relationships and they had, you know, this sort of richness in their lives that maybe was missing before they moved in, that they had, you know, things to do and people to socialize with.
I would imagine in some ways to try and maybe connect it with something some of us have experienced is like, you know, we were all for 2 years, year and a half, whatever it was, we were all stuck inside for COVID. And then, you know, so for a lot of them, I would assume they had similar living, you know, not, you know, not for the same reason, but, and then all of a sudden you can go back out again, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I can talk to people again. Oh, that's weird sometimes. Like, you know, like sometimes I like talking to people, sometimes I don't, you know, and figuring out how to make that all work. And it's just great to see the record of that and see, you know, the reality of it, plus, as you mentioned, the hope side of it, like, you know, what comes out of it, and, you know, lessons we can take from that as, again, as the community is still having this conversation. Like, right now, we're still having variations of this conversation. So, you know, I think it'll be great to be able to see how today we can take from this and apply it to the next 50 years. So.
Yeah. And then there's some programs that are connected to the exhibition. Now, we were supposed to have one last week, and it was postponed due to the weather.
Yep.
And we're working on rescheduling that. It looks like March 30th. Dan Clark, who has also been involved in especially telling the Alexander Clark house story and getting the Alexander Clark history piece right. He's gonna have a program on March 30th at the Art Center, and there'll be more details coming out about that. And then we'll have Bob Campana is going to speak on March 23rd. And so he'll talk more from his point of view, what was going on and his perspective.
You've got time to get it on your calendar.
Yeah.
People. Plenty of time.
And then, you know, since we were getting into Alexander Clark and that story, I also wanted to mention we have the Alexander Clark lecture series going on in Muscatine, and that is on Monday. So that's Paul Finkelman out at Muscatine Community College. So there's quite a bit of programming around it.
Yeah. So always something to do, and in Muscatine, but specifically here, there's like some nice, I mean, you could fill a couple of days with this stuff if you really wanted to. So is there anything else you want to make sure everybody thinks about?
Yeah, you know, I could probably do a pretty deep dive too on Alexander Clark, but you know, the better person, and I hope some folks have been following along, Dan Clark has for, I think the last, coming up on a full year, one article a week talked about something connected to Alexander Clark. And that's been a great resource for us too, to sort of have those things documented. And there's some wonderful videos out there about Alexander Clark. So there's lots of ways to learn about Alexander Clark and his importance, you know, just not just here in Iowa, but they're now working to gain national significance for the historic Alexander Clark House. So that's, and there's plenty of reasons why that should happen.
Yes.
And then I wanted to also put a little plug in. So tonight, today is February 23rd, so tonight we have the Darwin Turner Action Theater coming to perform at the Art Center. So that is a student group. Yeah, they're coming from the University of Iowa, and we're doing this in partnership with the Stanley Center for Peace and Security with their global education. Students here in Muscatine will see a variation on that performance this afternoon, or I think yet this morning, and then they'll perform for the public at the Art Center tonight. And at 5:30, it's free of charge, so you can kind of check that out too.
Grab an early dinner, head over.
Yeah, and it's not so long. You could, you know, we should be finished around 6:30, so you could go out to dinner after. Yeah.
Or have two dinners.
Have two dinners, yeah.
So, man, that is so much stuff. Today's been like, I hope you all like drinking from a fire hose, because that's what it's been today. But, you know, everybody says, well, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people say there's nothing to do in Muscatine.
No.
It's not at all true, right? Like, you just have to pay attention.
Right.
And you guys do a tremendous job all year round of having a balance of exhibits, programs, like, I mean, you can't forget the ice cream social. Like, I mean, there's always stuff going on. So,
anybody who says there's nothing happening in Muscatine should try to pick a date for an event and actually pay attention to what's going on.
And not try and step on something else.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It is actually very hard. But, well, thank you for coming in. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And, of course, obviously, whenever you've got new stuff, reach out and let us know, and we'll come on and have you talk about it. But so tonight, you can stop by for the Darwin Turner
Action Theater.
Action Theater, yeah. I hate to say it. I want to say Darwin Awards, and I know for sure it's not the Darwin Awards, but that's just where my head goes. Yeah.